Thank you, Mrs. Riley.
Yeah.
So this year, as you know, we are offering a virtual academy for those students who would like to continue to have their children learn virtually this year. Although, of course, we are offering our in-person learning for all students at Interboro as well. The way that this will work this year is that our programming will be offered to students and will vary by grade band. So K2 students will have a specific virtual experience, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And we're just going to talk a little bit about what that will look like. Just to give an overview before we begin, our model of virtual education is the same as our in-person model in that we maintain all of our partnerships and all of our access to technology and services for students. So if your student was interested in the Delaware County Community College, dual enrollment, the intermediate unit for the technical school, those are all still partnerships that we maintain. And all the students in the virtual academy have access to those partnerships. Similarly, all of our students in the virtual academy will have access to the same technology as our students in Interboro, so our one-to-one Chromebooks, just like last year, and we'll be providing students with that. Students in the virtual academy will also be provided with all necessary materials and textbooks. So particularly for some of our younger students where there might be things like manipulatives that they would need to use, we'll be providing them with a packet of like a baggie almost of materials each semester that they'll need for their classes. So our supports in the virtual academy are the same as they are for in-person students in that we have free and reduced lunch we'll talk about in a moment. Our counselors are available for all of our students, as are our social workers. And we will also be addressing our gifted OTPT speech and language and other services later in the presentation. We also wanted to note that for students in the virtual academy, those students are very much Interboro students. So they have access to all of the clubs, activities, and other things that we do at Interboro School District. So if a student wants to participate in a club, I spoke to a student today who wants to continue doing baking club at one of the community schools. She can absolutely come into the building and do baking club, you know, if she wants to. If a student wants to participate in sports, continue with track team or something like that, that's something that student can absolutely do. So that is one of the benefits of being in the virtual model. And our students in the virtual model will receive meals. And I think Mrs. Riley is going to explain this process a little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Fina. So just regarding meal pickup for students who choose the virtual model, there will be one pickup a week, and parents can pick up meals for both breakfast and lunch. So they will receive 10 meals a week. As we did last year, parents and guardians will pick up the food from the school in which they live. This year it is a little different. Before, we were not tracking the students per se who were receiving meals. It was really just the number of meals that we were serving. So this year it is a little bit different because as students are in school officially in this program, we have to track it a little differently, that students will have to provide their ID, or you will have to provide the ID number. We also are still asking parents to complete the free and reduced lunch form, even though that won't be needed. Meals do not cost anything this year. We are still under the waiver from the federal lunch program. So all meals are free, but we're encouraging parents to fill out the free and reduced lunch form, which can be done online, because as a district, we do receive subsidies based on the number of free and reduced families that we have. And also families can receive some subsidy from the government as well. So we really strongly encourage parents to complete the forms. Meal pickups will be on Monday, again, at the community school from 3:15 to 5:30. Thank you.
So to give a brief overview of the programming for our students in the virtual academy, we'll get into a little bit more depth in a moment, but just to describe it, our K2 and 3-5 experience is very similar. Those students will have an Interboro teacher delivering tailored virtual curriculum that's offered by our district approved virtual provider. And these Interboro teachers will provide synchronous instruction and support the students in both the synchronous and asynchronous learning. So for example, the students in kindergarten to 2nd grade will have a specific teacher, and the students in 3rd to 5th grade will have another teacher. They're both Interboro teachers who will be instructing the students in daily Zooms. if the students choose that synchronous option. We also have a daily synchronous homeroom that we would be encouraging all of our students to attend, even those who have selected the asynchronous option, as it's a really good check-in for students to check in with the teachers each day to get some social emotional learning lessons, some PBIS, and just general support also for them to kind of build community with their classmates. Our 6 to 8 students and our 9 to 12 students are have similar programming as each other in that they're receiving asynchronous instruction. So they'll be receiving asynchronous instruction of a tailored virtual curriculum offered by our district approved virtual providers. So in this case, they have their classes all asynchronously, but they're able to get synchronous support at any time of the day between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Fridays. So a student, for example, is taking a synchronous, or rather an asynchronous algebra class. They're learning on their own, they're completing their work by their deadlines. They have a question at 7:30, Monday morning. They can log on and immediately will be put into like a chat kind of Zoom room with a math teacher who can assist them with that. So those hours are Zoom drop-ins at any time for any subject for those students. We are offering a synchronous advisory homeroom period for our 6th to 8th grade students. That's twice a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays. And that period is going to provide the same type of support as the homeroom does for our K-5 students, in that they'll be receiving social emotional learning lessons, PBIS. That teacher will be checking in with them, and that will be an Interboro teacher for that advisory homeroom period. So that's a great way for them to connect back with their Interboro teachers, and also just to, again, see their classmates and have that kind of sense of community. Our 9 through 12 students will be able to join a daily synchronous homeroom. And this homeroom will serve the same function. And once a week, it will be expanded to offer even more services, and they'll be able to take part in some of the programming that's going on at the high school. So for example, they might be able to Zoom into a presentation or an assembly or things like that on that one day a week. Otherwise, their classes will be asynchronous with the same drop-in hours as the 6 to 8 students. So in this model, we partner with parents and guardians as learning coaches. So the parents and guardians act as the learning coaches in this model because they're home with their students when their students are learning. So we ask that the role of the learning coach be to establish a good environment for your student to work in somewhere, in your house or in another space where it's quiet, where they can focus, that you help them establish routines and schedules. And of course, our teachers and counselors have example schedules that we will provide you to help guide you in helping your student schedule his or her time. We ask that learning coaches will be checking attendance and grades weekly so that you're on top of what's going on with your students' learning, and that you communicate with teachers and administrators. And we'll, of course, be communicating. It's a definite partnership and two-way street. So we'll be communicating with you, and just want you to communicate any concerns to us. And for our younger students in K-5, we would ask that our learning coaches have a daily reflection meeting. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit more in orientation later on in August. But this would be a time where you can sit down with your student and kind of reflect and review what went on during the day in their lessons. It's really helpful, particularly for our younger learners. So our attendance will be taken synchronously for our students who are synchronous. So for those of our students who are attending either synchronous learning in K-5 or in 9 through 12 are attending their daily homeroom, that they can have their attendance taken through their homeroom and through their synchronous classes if they have them. For our students who are asynchronous, their attendance will be based on the percentage that they have completed in their classwork. The programming that they'll be using will be able to track the percentage complete. So for example, again, if that's my algebra class example, I can see when I've completed 27% of that class. I'm able to track my work completion that way. And so we would ask that students are going to be meeting weekly benchmarks. Generally, that'll be about 3% complete each week. Some shorter weeks will have a smaller percentage, but generally, for example, say week 1, we'd say we wanted a student to be 3% complete. By week 2, they would be 6% complete. So this will allow a student to schedule their own time within the week to work on their classwork, as long as by the end of that week, they're meeting that percentage complete. So right now we are looking at, for K-5, a virtual academy format in which our synchronous students are getting instruction in ELA, math, science, and social studies with Interboro teachers in a synchronous Zoom. And they will be, the platform that they'll be working with is called Edgenuity. That's our virtual curriculum provider. And our teachers will be teaching that. The specials will be offered asynchronously. So things like art, health, and PE, those will be asynchronous. And the students will attend daily morning meetings. There will be a K2 combined morning meeting with that K2 teacher and a 3-5 combined morning meeting with that 3-5 teacher. For students who wish to be asynchronous in the K5 virtual academy, we still do recommend that those students attend the morning meeting. Otherwise, we will definitely be scheduling some synchronous check-ins with students, but otherwise they would be completing their coursework in ELA, math, science, and social studies and specials asynchronously. So our Interboro teachers would be helping to support them, but they would be doing their work according to the schedule and just completing it on their own time. Again, we would ask that they do attend morning meetings. If they're unable to do so, we can work to arrange synchronous meetings with their teachers on a set schedule. So we do encourage students in K5 to make use of the synchronous learning model because it's a great model where they can be synchronously Zooming with our Interboro teachers and get that support that they need, particularly for younger students. So that is something that we do ask parents to strongly consider if they're looking at K5 Virtual Academy. So this is a sample second grade schedule. And you can see that we have not only the synchronous instruction showing here, but also some suggested brain breaks and time to complete work for other classes. So for example, if I am a second grader, I would join my morning meeting in the morning where I would be combined with kindergartners and first graders and my teacher. We would be maybe doing some icebreakers, some PBIS or social emotional learning. And then I would, after that, go into my first synchronous Zoom of the day, which would be my ELA and either science or social studies, depending on the trimester. So after that, in this schedule for the second grader, we would suggest that the second grader has a brain break, a snack, move around, get some exercise, and then they would have their independent reading. Our students in kindergarten through third grade have independent reading. Fourth and fifth grade have like a novel study. It's kind of similar. And then that daily reflection meeting with the learning coach, where they're sitting down with their parent or guardian and you're kind of talking through with them how they felt in that meeting, that ELA or social studies and science Zoom, if they had more questions. And if they did, there's a support block at the end of the day that they can join. So after lunch, they can complete their asynchronous work for special areas classes. And we recommend time for free play, of course, for younger students. That's unscheduled, perhaps outside, like akin to a recess. 2 to 2:20 would be a time when our teachers at Interboro, that K2 and that 3-5 teacher, have set aside time to have scheduled parent-student meetings. So as a parent or guardian learning coach, if you are concerned about something, this is where you would say, email your teacher and say, you know, I'd really like to meet with you to discuss, and they would set up time in this block. That last period of the day, that support block, that's a drop-in where the student can just, you know, if they said, oh, I really had a question about something in science this morning, they can drop into that Zoom at any point during that Zoom, ask their question and hop off. It's just kind of like an open office hour check-in. So this is a sample for a fourth grade student. You can see it's very similar, except the difference being, of course, the time of day. They might have their synchronous Zoom and they have a novel study, which is a little bit different. So every day the students will have either ELA and social studies or science, or they'll have math instruction. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday is devoted to ELA, social studies, and science, and Tuesday, Thursday to math. So our 6th to 8th grade students.
Ms. Spina, if I can just interrupt for a second, I do think it's really important if your child had been virtual in our iSync or iCyber program last year to really make sure that you understand that this program is different from iSync and iCyber last year. So for instance, if your child was iSync, they were on a consistent Zoom with their teacher or multiple teachers for basically the entire school day. In this situation that we have moving into next year, due to staffing, we don't have every one of our teachers teaching a virtual section anymore. So your child is essentially synchronous for approximately an hour and a half each day, with then the ability to jump in later for that additional support. I do just want to make sure that that is very clearly articulated as you consider this program.
Thank you, Dr. Ekman. And I appreciate that reminder too. As parents will notice, we're not using the iSync, iCyber terminology as Dr. Ekman noted, because this is a different program. It really has a very kind of tailored and different approach for this school year. So it's quite different from last year. So with 6th to 8th grade students, the format is asynchronous. It is a tailored virtual curriculum offered by certified district approved virtual providers, and students will complete the coursework in ELA math, science and social studies asynchronously, as well as their special classes. There is a synchronous advisory period offered twice a week for our students to Zoom with an Interboro teacher. And we do recommend that students in this 6 to 8 model choose this, because this is a time for our Interboro teacher to check in with students, to look through coursework with them, assist them with things that they may need help with, as far as if they need assistance contacting, someone for extra help, something like that. And also just to provide a little bit of time for some community, some group kind of team building with other students in the program. That teacher will make them aware of events going on in the district. They'll be receiving PBIS and social emotional learning lessons at that time. So it's definitely a really good support for students. Again, the students will always have that drop-in synchronous Zoom support with a certified teacher from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 to 4 on Friday. But kind of to note what Dr. Ekman just was discussing, in this model, the students need to take the initiative to join those drop-in Zoom office hours. So when they are having a question or a concern, they will need to, there's a link. It's very easy to join, but they will need to take the initiative to click on that link and jump into that office hour Zoom, because again, their classes are not offered synchronously. The high school virtual academy is very similar to that model, except the fact that there is a daily homeroom period that we encourage students to choose synchronous, so that they can do that synchronous homeroom period. Otherwise, their classes are all offered asynchronously. And they will have the opportunity to earn a full schedule of 7 credits. So I wanted to make sure that parents are aware that they will remain on track for graduation in this model. We are able to offer them all of the credits that they need in this model. And so I'm just going to introduce Ms. Rachel Lambert for a discussion about people services.
Good evening, everyone. We are preparing for students who receive services through an IEP, 504, or EL services. We are under the philosophy that students who are virtual have the best opportunity to attend in-person learning for these services, but we are able to accommodate through an IEP meeting some of the requests for virtual learning. So that is something to think about, that if you're choosing for your child to attend virtual and they have an IEP, that maybe they would still go in person for their academic learning. OT will be able to be delivered virtually, as well as speech. PT is another service that we would encourage in-person lessons. So we could arrange that with Mrs. Thompson and yourself in order for PT to occur. So you can also have the opportunity to register as the schedule that Mrs. Spina just explained, but then have the opportunity to meet with a special education teacher after school hours. So we will have the opportunity for scheduled times for interventions for your students after school hours with a special education teacher. As students sign up, we will be developing that schedule based on need and grade levels. Counselor check-ins will be able to be scheduled throughout the day as it was last year. So if your child receives a related service of counseling, we will be able to schedule them throughout the day. In that time that Mrs. Spina explained, there is time built in the day for maybe a counselor check-in or speech or OT. 504 accommodations will continue to be met in a virtual setting to the best of our ability, as some accommodations for 504s are based around a classroom environment. Some accommodations aren't necessary if you're at your home setting. As for our EL services, we will be able to provide them virtually. Having said that, we do strongly encourage our EL students to come in person for their EL services as well. All things will be discussed in an IEP meeting once your final enrollment in the virtual academy is discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. So the enrollment process for students is through the Interboro website. So that link will take you to this page over here, and you'll see, click here to complete the Interboro Virtual Academy enrollment application form. Once you complete that form, that's how you're indicating to us that you are interested in enrolling your student in the virtual academy. Residency paperwork must be submitted and up to date for all families. So it's very likely that after that, we will just need to have you reach out to our registration to submit residency paperwork. And we send emails to you to let you know who our contacts are for that in the registration department. So you'll get an email from us saying that you just need to contact registration if that is the case to submit residency paperwork, typically something like a utility bill, a copy of a lease, things like that. After that, once your residency paperwork is up to date, we would be sending a DocuSign agreement to you, and that will come from Ms. McDougald, who's here with us on the Zoom. She would be sending that out to you, and it will include the Virtual Academy agreement, which essentially is just a document that describes the things that we have described here, that students and learning coaches will be, kind of meeting certain expectations, and that teachers and administrators will be supporting students in this model. So you would sign that you understood that. And there is an addendum that you may receive if you have a student with an IEP 504 or receiving EL services. That addendum will just describe what Ms. Lambert just described, which is that your services will be offered in a specific format. So if you decided that you'd like to enroll your student in the virtual academy, however you'd like for him to come into the building, let's say for his speech support, that would be noted in the addendum, and then of course would be followed up with the IEP meeting. If you are choosing to have your student be asynchronous, that is to not attend any of the synchronous homerooms, advisories, or Zooms, depending on their grade level, we're sending a specific DocuSign to you that will just say that you understand that asynchronous students are really kind of in a different model that is very self-motivated and driven by the student and the learning coach. So there will be an addendum for that where you show your understanding of that. There is an orientation for K-5 parents on August 23rd at 6 p.m. For our high school and middle school, we're looking at the same week, probably Wednesday, but it's not announced yet. We'll be announcing that shortly. And that will be a Zoom that you can join. So for program change, I just wanted to make sure that we address this as well. Students who choose to be in the virtual academy can make program changes at different points during the year, depending on their grade level. So for example, if I choose to be in the virtual academy as a K through 5th grade students, I have the opportunity to request to leave the virtual academy to go to in-person learning 2 times a year at the trimester mark. So if I would like to, after first trimester, return to in-person learning, I would make my request, and that is my parent or guardian, would make my request to change programs by October 4th so that I could change back into in-person learning by November 8th. Similarly, if after 2 trimesters, I decided I wanted to spend the last trimester in the building, my parent or guardian would make a request by January 18th to change my program so that I could begin my 3rd trimester, February 17th in the building. 6th to 12th grade students have one opportunity because they have semester learning. So in order to prevent disruptions to their learning experience, that is the one time for them to request that change would be December 20th to begin the second half of their school year, January 24th, in the school building in person. Students may only change programs one time per school year, so they wouldn't be able to go out and then back into a virtual program or in person, vice versa. And so it's also really important to note that for our students in the community schools, they are not guaranteed a space back in person in their community school, because as they join the virtual academy, that seat might be taken by another in-person learner. So at that point, if their class is full, they would be offered a seat in another community school building. So that is something to note. So I think that wraps us up for the Virtual Academy presentation for tonight. And I'm just going to try to see if I can take a look at if there's any questions. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If anyone has any and would like to type them in there, we can absolutely address them. Otherwise, if you'd like to follow up, my email is on the website under the Virtual Academy page on the website, which is that link that was in the presentation there. I can go ahead and put that in our chat so that everyone has that. And you'll see my email there, and I'll add my email as well so that you can email me with any questions that you might have.
We do have a question. What is the deadline to sign up for the Virtual Academy?
So the deadline to sign up for the Virtual Academy, I'm just going to double check because we extended it since. Ms. McDougall, am I correct that it's the 23rd? I believe that's what it says on the DocuSign. Yes, I believe August 23rd. I'm just double checking the DocuSign here. And that is the date of the K-5 orientation. So that would be when we would want parents to be committing to the Virtual Academy. And yes, this presentation will be put on the website for sure.
Another question, will this presentation be on the website?
Yes.
Are there any other questions that we could answer?
The other question is the asynchronous program like the cyber program?
So it is similar to our iCyber program from last year. The interface will be a little bit different because we are partnering with the Virtual Academy curriculum provider. So there is an orientation for that, just so that students can get used to the way that their class looks online, can get used to the interface of that. But otherwise, in the sense that they are completing work on their own schedule by a deadline, yes, it is very similar to that. Another difference being that we are really strongly encouraging students to join those advisory or homerooms, and that also those office hours are completely open every day from 8 to 8, Monday through Thursday, and 8 to 4 on Friday. So that's actually an expansion of office hours this year.
Okay, we have another question. So students with IEP in 6th and 8th grade can go school in person for speech, etc.
Yes, so we would encourage that if your student does receive special services, the idea would be to go to school for those services.
Do they have all week to finish the work?
Yes, so when we're looking at those percentage completes, this is rather a student in the asynchronous does have all week to complete the work. We would be looking that they would have completed that percentage, whatever the benchmark is. If it's week 2, that might be 6% complete. Week 4 could be 12% complete by the end of that week. That's where we would want them to meet the benchmark. So again, looking at that on a Monday morning for the week prior, similar to last year. Students in the synchronous model would have deadlines that are provided by their teachers. So that might not give them all week to work on something. If it's, say, they see their teacher for ELA on Monday and she says, please have this finished by the time we do ELA again on Wednesday, that would be a specific deadline for those synchronous students, but they are working with their teachers in tandem in that case.
I think that may be it for the questions. On behalf of the district and this team, I would like to thank the parents for joining us. And hopefully we were able to answer your questions and you gained a lot of useful information and to help determining which program your child will be participating in this year. So thank you and have a good evening.